Hi, I'm Becky.
And I'm Lindsay, and we're back having a good old chatter about things that we're passionate about. And today we're going to be chatting all about why teens thrive in a creative environment, and what that means as well. What does a creative environment mean? So we'll start with that bit first. So what does a creative environment mean to you, Becky?
It is where the teacher can be, or the facilitator can be creative with the students that they've got. So we have these structures in place which are great for teaching and for tutoring. We have procedures and things that we follow in classroom structures. Doesn't always work. So if you're not being creative in your approach, you're going to end up losing students because they're not going to engage, they're going to get bored, they're going to get disruptive. So you have to be creative in your delivery.
Yeah, and then you've also got the actual creative environment that you're delivering these things in. So a lot of people consider that learning takes place within a classroom setting, or that if the child is out of that classroom setting, they might not be engaged as much. For me, a creative environment is about anywhere where a young person feels confident, safe, secure to engage is a creative environment. So sometimes that might be out in a field on a dog walk. Sometimes that might be within a different setting. It might be within a little side room where they've got people who are familiar near to them. It might be in a public place, not very often with teenagers, we'll come on to that in a minute. So yeah, it's about just thinking outside the box, and just because something's always been done one way doesn't mean that it needs to carry on being done that way for it to be seen and perceived as successful. It's about the outcomes and the engagement at the end of the day. And also allowing that student or young person to have sort of input and engagement with the environment. So rather than feeling like they're just being put in that environment, it's allowing an element of choice so that they feel comfortable and not trapped, locked in, looked upon, forced to go in, told they can't leave, and then all those other barriers are in place as well to stop them feeling comfortable. And sometimes stripping things away and having it actually quite blank is actually really important, because people think of creative environments as being very colourful and lots going on and loads of different activities and and that's quite detrimental to a lot.
Too much. It's just overload. And then if you're trying to get them to focus on what it is that they've got to learn or engage with, if they've got too many things going on around them, they're not going to be able to.
And it also allows that space to be and create something new and be in the moment and just focus on what you're there to focus on eventually when you get to that point as well. And it's about creating that environment where you think creatively about your role within the space as well. So although you might be there as the tutor, guide, mentor, you might also be learning from that young person as well. So it's thinking creatively about the setup and the role and what you actually want to get out of the sessions as well. So that's to do with the kind of what creative environment means, because I think that's always a bit of a blurred one as well. It doesn't mean that there's lots of paint, dancing, singing, music necessarily around. It just means it's different, thought outside the box. Something that's just going to spark someone's imagination. So then, why do teenagers particularly thrive in these sorts of creative environments? There's my daughter was chatting to me the other day. She was like, "Do you know that there's schools where people can choose what they learn and when?" I went, "Yeah, I do." And I've got friends that work in them abroad, and they're incredible places. Now the thought over here of maybe going, well, we're going to let the children choose their timetable, choose what they do each day, when they go to lessons, they're like, well, we can't do that, we can't allow that element of choice. And yet you've got individuals who are extremely creative with higher order thinking skills developing because they've got ownership over their own journey and their own choices, and they engage, they get their work done quicker, then they have more time to do other things. And it's really, the research out there about creating these creative environments that engage teenagers is an absolute minefield. There's so much of it, and when you see it in practice in some of the other countries around the world, it is really, really inspirational. So why is it important for teenagers? Well, teenagers' brains are like the most complex thing on earth. Let's just clarify that to start with. And what works one day, if you're a parent with a teenager at home, you will know, does not work another day. It might not even be a couple of hours later it works, or you might communicate in a certain way and then go, did I just speak a foreign language? Like, things don't go in, right? There's all sorts of things going on in there. There's all sorts of development going on, and it happens through different stages, as well as their adolescence, the hormones, and everything else going on with their body. So it's an ever-changing minefield, and it's about how we nurture those brains and those feelings and those emotions and those bodies to feel safe in a place. I think, would you agree?
Definitely.
So we'll share a couple of examples of what's kind of worked for us, I think. If you've got any little stories where you've seen that there's been a teenager, you've got one young student you had yesterday that is absolutely thriving because it is in a creative environment.
Yes, so this particular student has tried school, doesn't work for them. They are highly intelligent, way above their age that they're at, but it's fascinating because their thought construct is actually quite small. They know so much information. They're very creative as well, but they can only deal with specific questions. So we're slowly expanding it. So initially, if you go, what's your favourite subject? They wouldn't be able to answer. So you had to go, do you like English? Yes, no. Do you like science? And go through it that way. So over the course of the last 6 months, we've been slowly expanding that so we can ask more open-ended questions within the sessions to help with the creativity of their brain and the creative process that we're going to, creating a Dungeons and Dragons story, believe it or not. But it's fascinating because we can have this discourse within the sessions. So they may be talking and I'm learning stuff that's new, and then I will do my usual thing and ask questions on purpose to get them to think a little bit differently and a little bit wider than where they were going as well. Even if it's a case of the question isn't going to elicit a response that's going to change anything, but it's just to get them looking at different approaches as well.
And then in that moment, there is a magical thing that happens with teenagers when they suddenly have that moment of, oh, I get it, it clicks. They then feel empowered and they feel like they can do, and it links back to the other things that we talk about, as in that mindset of that growth mindset, and that rather than being told you've got to, and they're fighting that and they're trying to grow and they're trying to find their voice, suddenly when they feel it for themselves within this environment they feel safe in, they're suddenly like, they're inspired to keep wanting more and to keep going, and it's that ownership for them, I think, which is the most empowering thing when you see a young person within a creative environment having that freedom to get it wrong, have a go, no judgment, no fear of judgment, no fear of getting it wrong, and then suddenly go, oh, I get it, can we go here? And they stop asking permission to be themselves, and they start exploring the ideas that they want to go. And that's a little bit like your business is starting to develop that, giving himself permission to be.
And it's brilliant because normally it would be follow a path, we start here, we end there. And actually in this creative process, we've started here, gone forwards, gone back and gone, well, this is okay, but actually if we do it this way, it's going to end up better. So we're actually revisiting. So we haven't, in terms of the land from here to there, in terms of goal, you would think where we're at, we should be a lot further on, but we've gone over and we've come back and looked at it a different way, and actually it's making it so it's going to be easier going forwards and to take it further.
Have you seen that Facebook post at the minute that's going on about life should be more like a Google Maps?
No.
Have you seen this one? So this again, it epitomises this idea of the teenage journey and why creative environment is so important. It's that idea that life should be more like Google Maps, because if you take a wrong turn, they don't say you're wrong, go back. They just find another route to get you there. Or if you keep taking a wrong turn, they don't tell you off, you don't get into trouble. They just guide you in a different way, and you eventually get there, and it might take a little bit longer. And it is that creative pathway, creative journey for that young person that's important to them. And just because they're 11 or 12 or 13 and they're at school and they should be doing this doesn't mean they're ready to do it either. So being creative with the process, they'll get there in time, and most of the time they'll get there at a similar time to their peers if they're allowed a different way around it. So yeah, think about creative environments, think about teenagers in your world, your life, think about even just at home, like how can you change the status quo to give a little bit more of a creative approach to things, to make it easier for those amazing brains that are developing, that are going to turn them into the most incredible human beings. They just need a bit of space and time to do it sometimes.
And that's the key, it is giving them the space and time. So many times we give a teenager an instruction and expect them to do it straight away. Sometimes they can't process that instruction, or they need the time and space to figure out how they're going to do it, because it may not be the same way that you will do it.
100%.
And that's the key thing.
And from a last little personal thing, I've made the exact example. So with my son at the moment, he's at that point where he's wanting to do things. I'm like, okay, so we had this deal, it's like, I'm going to do this, you're going to do that. So now instead of telling him off for what he's not doing or pulling him up, I'm like, I'm doing my part, you're not doing your bit. And he's gone, oh yeah, you are actually, so I need to up my game. And the past couple of weeks we've had a massive shift and a massive change because he's been allowed the space to take ownership and figure out how he's going to do that, not being told what to do. So it's facilitating them to make choices for themselves and to do it. So yeah, have a go, let us know how it gets on, and we'll see you soon.